Hello and welcome back to the Girls That Gossip podcast, the podcast where we listen to what's hot and what's not right now so that you don't have to. I'm Josh Reid and as always I'm joined by...
Busayo, what are you doing?
Molly Woodward.
Amelia Tyson.
Hello everyone, how are we?
Hello.
Great, thank you, how are you?
Good. Now last week we listened to Uncanny and this week, quite a departure from that, obviously the same speech radio side of things, but this week we are listening to New Storytellers on BBC Radio 4. It's new work by audio producers new to the BBC Radio 4, and it's from the winners of the Charles Parker Prize for the Best Student Radio Feature, and it's going to be a bit different this week because we've all listened to different episodes. But what do we think of our little episodes?
Yeah, I definitely think mine was really impactful. You'll listen to it later on in the episode, but it was about the Grenfell Tower fire, which happened in 2017, and I think the winner of the prize did an amazing job of retelling the survivor stories.
I'd say with mine, I listened to Our Dad, and I really enjoyed it because I think there was a lot of raw emotion throughout. So I haven't listened to a podcast like that, and I know last week and the week before, last week you listened to more of like a spiritual one, mainly the theme, and the one before that more inspiring, I would say, and you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nice to listen to a different one, and the fact that we all have a different one to talk about, I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. My podcast was The Harassment Architecture. It was very interesting. I felt like this podcast was more like an open eyes kind of thing, so it's definitely something you can take forward with you. So yeah.
Well, all that's still to come, but first we'll start off with mine, which is Evan Green's Friends of the Wall, and it's about the National COVID Memorial Wall in London, obviously, the little red hearts representing people that died, and this clip shows the volunteers talking about the wall and what it means to them.
I get the bus here, and when that bus comes over the bridge and I see those red hearts, that half a kilometre of red hearts, I get excited because I know I'm going to be there helping to maintain it.
And still, every time I walk down those stairs each week, the enormity of the loss hits you every single time. It doesn't matter that I'm painting hearts here every week. I'm still hit by the enormity and the beauty of it, actually. You know, it's a raw outpouring of grief. That's how I see the wall.
I don't come from London, I'm from Stoke-on-Trent, so when I travel on a Friday, it's 150 miles to get here. Very expensive as well. But it's worth it because here, I'm not on my own, am I? I'm with all this. You know, and as long as I can, I will get to this wall and I will make sure this doesn't fade.
I think it definitely means a lot to the volunteers. Like, there was one anecdote later on in the podcast where it was this woman talking about her husband and how she was like had to leave him behind the hospital doors because of all the restrictions. And obviously it's something that we've all been through and we all know like the impact of, and I think Evan Green just really shows the impact and how important it is to everyone, because you can definitely tell in the their stories that the wall means a lot. Like they've been there every weather eventuality, every like rain, sunshine. There was like a blizzard, I think they mentioned. So I think it's important that we talk about this story, and I think he's done a really good job.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely something like everybody can relate to, because everybody went for it. So yeah, I think on that mark, it's definitely something everybody can get like not involved with, but listen to and
relate to.
I think even the way you're speaking about it, it seems like you've taken quite a lot from this episode. Yeah, you seem like you're quite emotionally impacted by it, and I think anyone listening to it, I know I definitely want to have a listen to that now, even just from the clip that you've played. Like it sounds very emotional, and straight away I'm like, oh my god, this is like touching my heart already, you know?
I feel like you have to be emotionally attached to these sort of things because like I said, it's a lived experience, we've all been through it, so it just
shows that you care as well.
Exactly. And I think what makes it really emotional is the background music, like in comparison to the other podcasts we've listened to last week where it was like more like dramatic. I feel like this one's got a bit more of a slower pace to the podcast, and you can really tell by the people's voice as well that like it's really emotive. Yeah, well, let's hear about more about yours then. My Life After Grenfell. Yeah, so this podcast is a feature of 4 survivors who survived the awful Grenfell Tower fire. And if you don't know about the Grenfell Tower fire, it was in the middle of the night where a tower block building in London was on fire, and so many people died because of it. So yeah, let's listen to the clip right now to hear more about what's going on.
The victims of this tragedy have been let down by this house.
for the last year and a half, all this is changed. And, you're dealing with solicitor, with public inquiry, the police investigation. You're dealing with buying new furniture, with the council, with the housing officer, with the key workers for many, many different reasons, with the doctor, because you have to have your checks done, so and so. So totally new things for us, and which made our life totally different than before. Obviously, we want to be positive. We want to be strong and look ahead. But inevitably, our life has been turned upside down.
Yeah, and adding on to the podcast that we listened to just before, the clip that I just spoke about, I feel like this clip was really emotive, and it really impacts me because I remember the Grenfell fire that happened back in 2017, and I remember that a lot of the survivors didn't get justice, and the clip at the beginning of the podcast shows the Conservative government speaking about the Grenfell Tower and House of Commons, and I think it's really impactful to hear about the survivors. I think the survivor was unnamed for their privacy, but it's that you can hear the emotion in their voice, and the Grenfell Fire Tower caused a lot of public interest. So we have so later on the podcast there's like archive footage from Stormzy and Adele talk about Grenfell, and I feel like if you grew up in London, or I think this incident was just around the whole news, and it really shows the class divide between the rich and the poor, the Grenfell Towers. So it's a story that really impacts me, and I got quite emotional quite listening to it. So
it comes at a perfect time because it's been reported by the BBC that they are set to finally demolish Grenfell Tower, although there has been a bit of outrage from the families of the survivors. I've seen it's quite like emotional, like my clip, and it's just
it's still like ongoing, like the impact of it all.
I think you can tell why a lot of these have won so far. Every single one so far has been quite heartfelt, and I feel like you can tell why they've won because you've taken something from every single one. And even if you didn't know much about any of these stories, I feel like you're definitely going to learn something by the end, and a lot of people enjoy podcasts that you can learn and take something from in any ways,
And like Wally was saying, even though these podcasts were created across a span of different years, for example, mine was created in 2019, and the fact that was in 2025, 6 years later, and it's still like heartfelt. And I'm not sure when yours was, your prize was won, Josh, but the fact that these are like timeless footages, and they're still impactful to a lot of people now, so it shows the impact of podcasts that they could be left for like. They're like timeless, they're relevant all the time.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Busayo. Molly, our dad, let's hear it.
So we've got Our Dad, and it was featured and produced by Thea Rickard, and it won in 2023. So the tagline for this is "Growing up in the shadows of violence and alcohol abuse can leave you with questions." So the documentary explores the experience of 4 siblings with one distinct focus, their father. When time and context shifts, what remains is shame, uncertainty, and the search for clarity. So this clip especially is very raw and emotional, so I just wanted you to listen to this one.
If I could end this here, if our dad could be the villain of this piece, wouldn't that be so much easier? But this isn't a made-up story, it really happened, which means that our dad isn't the antagonist here. He is a human being.
Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, dear. Hooray!
On my 5th birthday, a girl blew out my candles before I could. My dad immediately ran to the kitchen to relight them and stood me on a chair to blow them out away from her. Maybe I remember that because it was a rare moment. But right then, it was difficult not to love him.
I think that clip right there where they said it's difficult to love him, I think throughout this podcast, in a strange way, I was enjoying it despite the upsetting content. Hearing the individuals themselves talk about their experiences with their father, it was very difficult, but you could hear the raw emotion and depth, and it made me appreciate the craft of it. But this is definitely something quite difficult to talk about, and many people handle and deal with abuse from their parents or people they love. So the fact they've gone through it and had to relive it themselves, I just think give them applaud just for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed.
It's similar to like, the baby reindeer thing, that show on Netflix. He relived his experiences to Richard Gord, I think he was called. Gard.
Yeah.
He relived that experience. So again, applaud for him. So I think I took a lot from this podcast, and I don't know, it was very emotional as well. And again, that's probably why it won as well, because the craft of it.
Yeah, it's very raw, like you said, topic.
Yeah.
And for them to go in and do a podcast about it.
Yeah, and I agree. I feel like the theme that ties all of our podcasts together, even though they're different subjects, is the raw emotions and the people reliving their stories. Like Josh's one was about COVID, my one was about the Grenfell Tower, and Waddy's one was about the abuse and the father's alcohol. So yeah, I think that's a really good theme that ties everything together.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Molly. Harassment architecture, Amelia, what is it about?
So the podcast I have chosen was the Harassment Architecture podcast. It was made by George Ruskin, and he meets Charleston, who has a first-hand experience in homelessness, and he offers his personal view on what it's like to navigate harassment architecture and a view of homelessness overall. The clip that I'm going to play for you in a minute is Charleston telling us what the only functional bit of architecture is in every single town. I thought this clip was quite shocking and in a way, and also very eye-opening, and definitely changed my perspective on things, so I'd love for you to hear it.
The only truly functional bit of architecture that I can think of in every single town is the local fast food joint, because it has a disabled toilet downstairs that anyone can access on a Friday night, on a Saturday night, during the week even. You're able to eat, you're able to stay warm, you're probably able to be in there until 6 o'clock in the morning, and if you fall asleep, workers don't care anyway, so long as it's not too busy. That's kind of like the hub. It's a hub. It's a hub that works for anybody. The food is terrible, apart from the chicken tenders and the strawberry milkshakes. The lifestyle that it generates, the unhealthiness that it generates is terrible, but it is helping the homeless community far more than anywhere else I can think of.
Yeah, so for this bit, I like how there was the familiar sound of McDonald's, but the story contradicted it in a way, because when I heard the sound of McDonald's, I had a completely different experience and view of that place compared to what his experience was. And it again brought the difference in experience back for the audience, and maybe different how we see the world.
Yeah.
And I thought there was a lot of that in the podcast, where they brought similar sounds, like he was sleeping underneath a railway. And I think they're all similar sounds, but we all have very different experiences, and it kind of brought back the point of view of that we don't see what other people see. And with the fact of harassment architecture, the benches, you would never think of the arm in the middle of a bench stopping someone from sleeping, but in a way that's how it's impacting the homeless at the minute.
Just showing that unless you've experienced it or have experiences where them things sound, architecture and things like that, it really does make you think.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it like that.
No,
That's
you don't
a weird
see it.
perspective.
It's an interesting point of view, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Amelia. So, just to finish off, what do we think of all the episodes? Is it hot or not?
Mine is definitely a hot. I feel like it was just so impactful, and just different pieces of footage throughout the podcast and the different segments and editing, and I think you guys should go listen to it for yourselves. So definitely.
I think I definitely will.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a hot.
Yeah, and with mine, Our Dad, it was honestly one of the best things I've listened to in the last few years. And I know she won in 2023, but I looked over on her social media and she's still creating content similar to this. So I'm definitely going to go see what else she's got. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's definitely a hot from me.
Yeah, definitely a hot from me. Really opened my eyes. And yeah, I definitely will look out for it more now.
Yeah, same here. It was quite an impactful, emotional thing, and I think that's just a general theme that I'm getting from all of the different clips. So
Agreed.
Definitely a hot from me. Well, that's 4 hots all around, but you can listen to it now on BBC Sounds. It's New Storytellers. In the meantime, that has been the Girls That Gossip podcast. I've been Josh Reid.
I've been Busayo.
I've been Molly Woodward.
I've been Amelia Tyson.
And you can catch us next time for more Girls That Gossip. Bye.
Bye.